Greetings, brothers and sisters, and welcome to our study today, Sabbath, the 22nd of February 2025, where we are looking at drugs by our presenter, Brother Keagan Banda. And so we now hand over to Brother Keagan to give us a thoughtful prayer and prayer.
Okay, so we looked at the definition of drugs. We discovered what it is, and from the Spirit of Prophet's point of view, Ellen White, she gave us the definite what she thinks drugs is. Okay, because in the dictionary and other like dictionary of the hospital, you discover that they say that drug is a substance used for therapeutic purpose. But in this study, we learned saying that drugs are not therapeutic, meaning they cannot cure. They just change the location of a disease. That's what we learned. So I'm just trying to check some of the composition of drugs. This is from Selected Messages, page 290. Two selected messages, page 290 to 291. You can read it. To SM 290 to 291. Those who make a practice of taking drugs.
So Selected Messages, Book 2, page 290, paragraph 2, it says, those who make a practice of taking drugs sin against their intelligence and endanger their whole afterlife. There are herbs that are harmless, the use of which will tide over many apparently serious difficulties. But if all would seek to become intelligent in regard to their body necessities, sickness would be rare instead of common. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Manuscript 86, 1897, in brackets, General Manuscript, Health Reform Principles, written from Cooranbong, Australia.
Okay. So this was self-explanatory. The reading, it says drugs endanger the whole afterlife. That's what you got from there. Especially those who make the practice of taking drugs. They sin against their intelligence. Against their intelligence, we know it's IQ. They sin against their intelligence and endanger their whole afterlife. Okay. And we are told also saying that there are herbs that are harmless, the use of which will tide over many apparently serious difficulties. But if all would seek to become intelligent in regard to their bodily necessities, sickness would be rare instead of common. Okay. So with this, we're going to pray so that God gives us the intelligence or not becoming prone to taking drugs. Let us pray. Our Father, which art in heaven, we thank you for today, Saturday, to keep it, to remember to keep it, and also to give us a reminder saying that one day we shall have on the Sabbath in heaven for 1,000 years. May you help us, O Lord, to understand this subject that is before our hand, the subject of drugs, the reason to why you decided to reveal this light to your maidservant, so that we might share it to others and they might learn. Above all things, you say that you wish us to be in good health, O Lord, and we know that you do not wish harm to us. You want good things to us to happen because you are the one who created us. You are the maker. We did not create ourselves. So you know what is good for us. And then we just do prayer, thanksgiving in our hearts. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I'm just going to read. First of all, I'm going to quote from a book. This book was written by Mike Grieger. I thought, but I have it in the form of, it's a book, but I downloaded it from the Play Store. So meaning I can't share it. Let me just read it. This book by Mike Grieger is there online, but they are selling. Online they're selling, but YouTube also is there in form of a presentation. The title of this book is How Not to Die by Mike Grieger. Okay, so he lists, the book simply talks on how not to die and the causes or the leading causes of death. Okay, so the first three leading causes of death, number one is that is in America, because he's from America. He's an MD from America. This was from the research, meaning there's empirical evidence backed to this. Okay, because Mike Grieger, what he does, he gets the latest update from the empirical research or clinical trials and epidemiological report. So the first report is also there. You can confirm it on the net. Just random Google saying the first leading cause of death in America is number one, heart disease. Number two is what you call cancer. Number three, it is called or doctors or it is called drugs. That is number three. They call it iatrogenic causes, which is how not to die from doctors. So then, if it is confirmed that even on the net, just Google random saying the three causes of death are that is iatrogenic cause, which most of people die out of drugs, out of what do you call aspirin, surgery. That is the third leading cause of death in America. So if this is confirmed, then most of the people are sick and they don't want to die. Okay, they don't want to die. So how not to die? We have to adhere to this which we are presenting. Okay. Let me just read some of the paragraphs in this book. This is chapter 15. It says, as the saying goes, an ounce of prevention is worthy a pound of cure. That is quaint, but a pound isn't all that heavy. Why change your diet and lifestyle and when you can just let modern medicine do its job of fixing your backup? Unfortunately, modern medicine isn't nearly as effective as most people think. Doctors excel at treating acute conditions. They excel at treating acute conditions, short term conditions, or what you call traumatic conditions, such as mending broken bones and curing infections. But for chronic long-term conditions, chronic diseases, which are the leading causes of death and disability, conventional medicine doesn't have much to offer and in fact can sometimes do more harm than good. For example, side effects from medications given in hospitals kill an estimated 106,000 Americans every year. That statistic alone effectively makes medical care the 60th leading cause of death in the United States. And this number reflects only the number of deaths from taking the drugs as prescribed. An additional 7,000 people die every year from receiving the wrong medication by mistake. And 20,000 others die from other hospital errors. Hospitals are dangerous places, and thus not even counting the estimated 99,000 deaths each year due to hospital-acquired infections. But can deaths from infections be blamed on doctors? They can if doctors won't even wash their hands. We've known since the 1840s that the hand washing is the best way to prevent hospital-acquired infections. Yet compliance among healthcare workers rarely exceeds 50%. And doctors are the worst offenders. One study found that even in a medical intensive care unit, slapping up a contact precautions sign that is signaling particularly high risk of infections leads less than a quarter of doctors to properly wash their hands or use a hand sanitizer when treating patients. That's right, not even one doctor out of 4 washed his or her hands before laying them on the ear. Many physicians are concerned that should it become widely known how many people doctors inadvertently kill every year. It could undermine public trust, but if doctors can't even be bothered to wash their hands, how much trust do we deserve? Okay, then it goes further. These are the trials of the Institute of Medicine estimates that medical errors may kill even more Americans, up to 98,000, bringing the total annual death count closer to 300,000. That's more than the entire population of cities like Newark or Buffalo or Orlando. Even using more conservative estimates of deaths due to medical errors, healthcare comes in as the real third leading cause of death in America. Okay, you can read this on your own time because this is the chapter 15. It talks the same leading cause using empirical information. One of them is the radiation, drugs, wrong prescriptions, hygienic, methods. All those things, they contribute to the number of deaths which we experience in the world. Okay, so if these are facts, so we have to know how to solve all this. But the Seventh-day Adventist Church are fortunate. They were given the truth by God, that is in 1863. Then in 1866, another truth pertaining to the same that was given in 1863 was given of the sanitarium, that the Seventh-day Adventist Church needed to have a sanitarium. The sole purpose is to reform the allopathic medicine, so that they learn that we will heal conditions or diseases using hygienic methods. Okay, and they were to learn from us. So, and this truth Also, she was given the drugs what they do. Ellen White also was given the light pertaining to the drugs, what the drugs do. So that's the reason we've been presenting this thing, drugs. So we'll continue now from where we ended from. Let me check. Where did we end from that time? Okay, so we're supposed to discuss now the common constituents or ingredients in the same drugs. That's what I'm supposed to see now. Is this the, where is this? Oh, this is the zone. Okay. Let me just try to. Let me just begin from here. The use of water for fever cases, but many have never experienced the benefit effects of water and are afraid to use one of heaven's greatest blessings. Water has been refused, persons suffering with burning fevers through fear that it would injure them. If in their fevered state, water had been given them to drink freely and applications, let me remove this. And applications had also been made externally, long days and nights of suffering would have been saved, and many precious lives spared. But thousands have died with the raging fevers consuming them until the fuel which fed the fever was bent up, the vitals consumed, and have died in the greatest agony, without being permitted to have water to allay their burning thirst. Water which is allowed a senseless building to put out the raging elements is not allowed human beings to put out the fire which is consuming the vitals. Inexcusable ignorance, multitudes remain in inexcusable ignorance in regard to the laws of their being. They are wondering why our race is so feeble and why so many die prematurely. This is I'm on page, that is 54. Don't know if those are pages. No, this is the screen. You know. Are you there? Huh? No, not really 54 because these are screens, so I don't know. Because after you remember after the questions on drugs, Ellen White answers, then few choice on top. Okay. Let's check answer. Okay. Okay, the pages for this is not the same, but so physicians who profess to understand the human organism prescribe for their patients and even for their own dear children and their companions slow poisons to break up disease or to cure a slight indisposition. Surely they cannot realize the evil of these things as they were presented before me, or they could not do thus. The effects of the poison may not be immediately perceived, but it is doing its work surely in the system. Okay. Undermining the constitution and crippling nature in our efforts. We know the word to cripple. To cripple is to cut. They are seeking to correct an evil, but produce a far greater one, which is often incurable. Drug invalidism. Drug invalidism. Are you there? Just search drug invalidism. Where do you search here? drug and validism. The spelling is not correct. So you can search for drug and see. Not able to find this. This is a book, this one. Hello? Yes, from okay. But they want the exact. It says, those who are thus dealt with are constantly sick and constantly dosing, and yet if you listen to their conversation, you will often hear them praising the drugs they have been using and recommending their use to others because they have been benefited by their use. It would seem that to such as can reason from cause to effect, the sallow countenance, the continual complaints of ailments and general prostration of those who claim to be benefited would be sufficient proofs of the health-destroying influence of drugs. And yet many are so blinded, they do not see that all the drugs they have taken have not cured them, but made them worse. The drug invalid numbers one in the world, but is generally peevish, irritable, always sick, lingering out a miserable existence, and seems to live only to pour into constant exercise the patience of others. Poisonous drugs have not killed them outright, for nature is loath to give up her hold on life. She is unwilling to cease her struggles. Yet these drug takers are never well. They are always taking cold, which causes extreme suffering because of the poison all through their system. Strychnine, a branch which are presented before me bearing large flat, you can check this one out. Strychnine, a branch which was presented before me bearing large flat seeds, upon it was written, Nux vomica, strychnine. Beneath was written, no antidote. Our shown persons under the influence of this poison. It produced heat and seemed to act particularly on the spinal column, but affected the whole system. When this is taken into the smallest quantities, it has its influence, which nothing can counteract. Are you there? This one. So she saw a drug, says, a branch was presented before me, bearing large flat seeds. Upon it was written Nux vomica, strychnine. Beneath was written no antidote. Okay, I was shown persons under the influence of this poison. It produced heat on the patient and seemed to act particularly on the spinal column, but affected the whole system. Okay, when this is taken in the smallest quantities, it has its influence which nothing can counteract. if taken immediately. Okay, so there's another one. This one. This one. Okay. But affect the whole system. When this is taken in the smallest quantities, it has its influence, which nothing can counteract. If taken in moderately, convulsions, paralysis, and insanity. Okay. So it says if you take it not in moderation, there is this convulsions, paralysis, and insanity. This strychnine. And death are often the results. Many use this deadly evil in small quantities, but if they realized its influence, not one grain of it would be introduced into the system. When first taken, its influence may seem to be beneficial. It excites the nerves because it is considered as a nervine. Okay, it excites the nerves connected with the spinal column. But when the excitement passes away, it is followed by a sense of prostration and of chilliness or coldness the whole length of the spinal column, especially upon the head and back of the neck. The patients generally cannot endure the least draught of air. They are inclined to close every crevice, and for want of the free, invigorating air of heaven, the blood becomes impure, and the vital organs are weakened, and generally debility is the result by unduly exciting a sensitive nerves connected to the spinal column. By this poisonous drug, they lose their tone and vitality, and weakness of the back and limbs follows. The sight and hearing are often affected, and in many cases, the patient becomes helpless. Okay, so that is the effects of a nervine called it's called what? Okay, strychnine. So it says it affects basically the nervous system from the spine. It causes paralysis. It causes seizures, convulsions, okay, and chilliness. Strychnine. Then she also saw opium. I was shown that in the innocent, modest-looking white poppy yields a dangerous drug, opium. We know opium is in many medicine. I think opium also is there in those which I have to confirm. So I don't know if it is opium or heroin, the one that is a codeine. The reason why they tell you not to take it's the deck people, they refuse people from taking that because they know that there are dangerous drugs contained in that Belinin called cough syrup, codeine. Hello? What?
No, because that's a flat seeds. There are flat seeds that produce this trichome. They're not flax seeds.
Or it says you thought it's linseed or flaxseed. No, it's strychnine. It's a chemical. You have to sit closer so that we go together. No. She said flat seeds. She saw strychnine. They were flat seeds. She said. Oh, okay. I wanted you to be checking the spellings also, to get along. Okay. So that you'll be going together. be getting along. Opium, I was shown that in the innocent, modest-looking white poppy hills, a dangerous drug. I was talking of the constituents of codeine and many other drugs which we do not know the constituents or ingredients because they are hidden from us. Okay. The reason why they take sometimes, those people that are addicted to drugs, they might discover it and try to use it, like the way they discovered codeine. They started drinking it, okay, because they discovered, but then the sole purpose of why
There's codeine, then those
yes,
people
codeine Berlin. Yes,
Berlin,
yes, it's the brand name is the ones who manufacture codeine is the Berlin. Yes. So it's just a brand name. They have different medications. Okay. One of them is the codeine they've produced. So so the reason why they may be manufactured that is for coughs. Okay. But in large, they discovered in large dose, the people were getting high. Yes, they're getting high.
actually they do.
Yes.
Now they still buy.
So then the deck came in because they knew what is contained in there. Okay.
Now when you say deck, for those online, it's the Drug Enforcement Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Drug Enforcement Commission in Zambia, they know what is contained in that, so they try to control. Because when you try to, you can check that subject in health, in Ministry of Healing called licentiousness. I think she discusses that one, where a lot of people, the government, for shortcomings of the government, is that they would license what you call dangerous drugs, okay, to be given, then other things they would not, okay, license. For instance, they've licensed a lot of drugs, like such as tobacco and other things, but others they've licensed them through what we call the healthcare or allopathic medicine, because most in the allopathic medicine, these are allowed to use dangerous drugs, and the Drug Enforcement Commission will not even get involved because they are considered to be licensed or certified dispensers of drugs. Okay, but if they kill, for instance, if me, I'm a pharmacist, I'm licensed, I have a certificate, but I happen to diagnose the medicine that is allowed or can also be dangerous, I just dispense it with the prescription of a certified doctor. Then if that person dies, me or not have issues with the law, but yet that is killing. Okay, that is what has become today. So opium, I was shown that in the innocent, modest-looking white poppy hills, a dangerous drug, opium is a slow poison. When taken in small quantities in large doses, it produces lethargy and death. Its effects upon the nervous system are ruinous. Okay, so this also, it is a nerve. You see that it also affects the nervous system, just like the other one. When patients use this drug, when the patient uses this drug until it becomes a habit, it is almost impossible to discontinue. See, it is addictive. Do you have bundles? Try to check what is in contain. Let's try to see. Because they feel so prostrated and nervous without it. They are in a worse condition when deprived of it than the rum drinker without his rum, or the tobacco user deprived of his tobacco. Okay, so it says, tobacco has caffeine, and it is addictive. Just like those people, Ellen White says that you should not take tea because it is going to make you crave to smoke tobacco or to use tobacco. But then now imagine that you give a drug that has the opium, which it mimics the same as the what you call tobacco or tea. Then a child, you remember Eleanor she gives, says you can give a child tea, then you do not know. But when you discover that a child grows up, then begins to take tea, begins to smoke cigarette, then you'll be surprised saying, "Ah, but this my child is smoking cigarette. Who taught him?" Yet it's you who could have taught that child by giving that child tea and coffee. Then imagine now the child discovers, okay, yeah, it's opium, it's there. Okay, now imagine that now the child discovers that the thing which you've been giving the child is found in the drugs such as codeine, such as cigarette, because the peer pressure is that friends will make the child to maybe just try to have a puff of cigarette, okay, or they go for the party, they have those is it masisha, those stuff where they smoke. Yes, shisha, they smoke. Then they discover that, then they begin to do it because it's there in the system and they've been taking it all along their life through the mother and also when they were given when they were young. And the craving comes and they cannot do without it. Then you try to say that my child is addicted. Okay, so we have to know the root causes of all these things which are stemming from, okay, and try to mitigate them. Okay, so it says this opium, it has effects similar to that of tobacco. Ellen White calls this tobacco as a tobacco, he calls it as a dangerous weed, a noxious weed. The opium slave is in a pitiful condition. In a pitiful condition. Unless his nervous system is continually intoxicated with the poisonous drug, he is miserable. It benumbs the sensibilities, stupefies the brain, and unfits the mind for the service. Yes.
I think, like here in Zambia, these are the characters that we call junkies.
Yes.
Yes, it is because of this high intoxication, especially those that are found in an area called Chibolia here in Lusaka. You find that those do a lot of things. They take opium and all these other stuff. Now, I also want to talk about bus drivers because they used to take those traditional beers called kachasu or stuff like that. And so when the government introduced the the breathalyzers through the road safety agency, those drivers were always caught and were told that they were caught drunk driving. So now what they have done, they have resorted to taking codeine. The codeine is a medicine that relieves pain, as we are told. And here we're told to say codeine is used to relieve mild to moderate pain. It belongs to the group of medicines called narcotic analgesics pain medicine. This medicine acts, like Brother Keagan had said, on the central nervous system to relieve pain. So we are told to say when codeine is used for a long time, it may become habit forming, causing mental or physical dependence. So now we see that the government will come with those breathalyzers. They will see somebody staggering when walking. They will try to make him breathe through the breathalyzer. They see that it shows that everything is normal. But when you look at the person, he seems to be drunk and he's not behaving properly. So this is how these have tried to escape the dragnet of them being caught by the law, as it were. So I just wanted to show that this is happening right here in Zambia, and it's a big problem that we have around. Thank you.
Okay. Hello? Okay. Yes, if you have a question, you can raise up your hand and talk. Is it still sharing?
Okay, sorry, we went offline. Our Wi-Fi has given up, so we're using the other way of connecting. So sorry for that.
Are you there? Sure. Yes. Are you seeing the screen? I seeing the screen.
But yes, it is.
Oh, yes.
You can see it. Yeah.
Okay. Sensibility stupefies the brain. Says it benumbs the sensibilities and stupefies the brain. This is opium, and it unfits the mind for the service of God. So true Christians cannot persist in the use of this slow poison. When they know its influence upon them, they cannot persist. So those who use opium cannot render to God any more acceptable service than can the drunkard or the tobacco user.
Maybe here is the biggest problem with what we are studying. It is showing us that unknowingly to us, you are sick, maybe you have a cough. Then the physician prescribes for you codeine. So you'll be taking, when in actual sense, what you're taking is opium and you're intoxicating your what? Your mind. Now here, inspiration is saying that those who use opium cannot render to God any more acceptable service than can the drunkard or the tobacco user. You remember when we were told also of not taking things like coffee or all those caffeinated drinks. So you see that in essence, we disqualify ourselves whilst we claim that we are Christians. I think this now explains to a large degree why we have made people that we call ourselves Christians or even Davidians But because of what we use, we are actually, like inspiration here is saying, we are cutting ourselves off those that can do service for God. And find that unknown to us, we have been destroying our nerve and brain. But all this we have been receiving at somebody who's wearing a white coat and pretending to be a healer when in actual sense is a killer. Just like you says, you said on the astrogenics, yes, yeah, causes. So you find that the doctor is innocent putting on his coat, I mean, giving medication. When he actually says what he's giving is what is going to cause more deaths to people. So when you look at these diseases that we have now, like hypertension and other things, it's either the food we eat, it's either it's caffeinated, it has all these uh, uh, body destroying agents in them. And here is somebody who thinks that he's taking them innocently and is even spending money on it when in actual sense is curtailing his own life. So I think there is need that, as God is saying that we should know what we eat and eat healthily, then we should now begin to be careful with what we consume, even when we are sick. Thank you.
So another assignment which we have to do is that we have to find out also the drugs that constitutes, because remember that the first time we read, the first time when we were presenting this drug, we read a quote saying even the combination of a vegetable and a chemical, those are dangerous. Remember that quote, huh? And also here, Ellen White begins now to tell you of the other dangerous constituents of drugs, such as opium, strychnine, tobacco, and other things. So for us to benefit ourselves, we have to find out truly what drugs have these. Okay. Besides the quote saying that there are drugs, of course, I gave the example of artemisia saying it's sorry, of coartem, meaning that there's a mixture of a herb artemisia with a drug. Also, aspirin. She talks of aspirin. Aspirin also, there's a tree called, is it, you can Google it up. The certain tree, they mix the leaves of the same tree with a drug, then they make not aspirin, no, they make quinine, or I meant quinine. Okay, quinine. Then aspirin I don't really know what, but it works like omega-3. So it's possible that they might get fish oil or other things, but we have to find out what truly the constituents, or I'll do that research. I'll try to make to present to you the drugs and their ingredients or constituents, though oftentimes they hide the ingredients. Okay, that's what they do. Okay. So for instance, like coffee, who knows the ingredients of coffee? No. So we do not know, maybe there's also opium, because how is caffeine a painkiller also as well? You know, like paracetamol or Panadol, how is that a painkiller? What makes it to be so analgesic? Because we've been saying opium is an analgesic, meaning it can stop pain. Okay, so we do not know most of the drugs, the ingredients of them. Even the pharmacist, they don't know. Okay, what they are told is to dispense. Okay, even how to make it, they don't know. Says those who break off the use of this nerve and brain destroying practice will have to possess fortitude and suffer, as will the drunkard and the tobacco. Understand? Yes, the tobacco slave. When deprived of their body and mind destroying indulgences. Okay. God is displeased that his followers should become slaves to habits which ruin body and mind. So you see, this will take something like what we call grace, because once the body is used to such, it will begin to crave. It is addictive in short. Okay, these are addictive in nature. So the body will begin to crave for these. So for you to get rid of it to be difficult. Okay, it will take grace from God to get rid of this habit. I hear such, like those people that take Piriton, I hear saying, I think I'm addicted. Every time they would take Piriton. Others are addicted to taking Kafimo because they say, without it, I had a grandmother who used to take Kafimo. Every time she can suffer from any condition. Once she takes Kafimo, she'll be okay. She was addicted to it. Okay. So we do not know what makes them to be addicted. God is displeased that his followers should become slaves to habits which ruin body and mind. Nux vomica or strychnine and opium have killed their millions and have left thousands upon the earth to linger out a wretched and suffering existence, a burden to themselves and those around them. She talks also of mercury, calomel, and the quinine. Okay, it's the one I was talking about, the quinine. Okay. So the mercury, most of the drugs, also some of the what do you call the vaccines, they have mercury in them, so they hide. Don't want to tell us. Calomel, quinine says these have brought their amount of wretchedness, which the day of God alone will fully reveal. That's what Ellen White says. Preparations of mercury and calomel taken into the system ever retain their poisonous strength as long as there is a particle of it left in the system. These poisonous preparations have destroyed their millions, okay, and left sufferers upon the earth to linger out a miserable existence, or are better off without these dangerous mixtures. Miserable sufferers with disease in almost every form mishapen by suffering, with dreadful ulcers and pains in the bones, loss of teeth, loss of memory, and impaired sight are to be seen almost everywhere. They are victims of poisonous preparations, which have been, in many cases, administered to cure some slight indisposition, which after a day or two of fasting would have disappeared without medicine. But poisonous mixtures administered by physicians have proved their ruin. You see, no? So Ellen White, she was shown some of the drugs and the evil effects of them. So she has examples. And even when you do the research, you'd see that they do the same. Okay. The drug evil, the endless variety of medicines in the market, the numerous advertisements of new drugs and mixtures, all of which they say do wonderful cures, kill hundreds where they benefit one. Those who are sick are not patient. Okay. Those who are sick are not patient. They will take the various medicines, some of which are very powerful, although they know nothing of the nature of the mixtures. All the medicines they take only make their recovery more hopeless, yet they keep dosing and continue to grow weaker until they die. Some will have medicine at all events. Then let them take these hateful mixtures and the various deadly poisons upon their own responsibility. God's servants should not administer medicines which they know will leave behind injurious effects upon the system, even if they do relieve present suffering. So you understand, for you to know, because me, I can dispense drug, then I'm a Christian. I do not know its injurious effects. I just give. I do not know. I'm ignorant. But if I learn this, I'll be able to know that this is so dangerous, I cannot dispense it, I cannot give it. Okay. Every poisonous preparation in the vegetable and mineral kingdoms taken into the system will leave its wretched influence affecting the what? The liver and the lungs, deranging the system generally. Even this is the quote, the one saying that we also read saying, even the vegetable kingdom, you go there, every poisonous preparation, you get a chemical, you mix the vegetable kingdom, okay, you compose a drug. Here it says it will leave its wretched influence affecting the liver and lungs, deranging the system generally, okay, or disturbing the system generally. Nor does the evil end here. Diseased, feeble infants are brought into the world to share this misery, transmitted to them from their parents. So you will not only leave that evil on yourself, but the children that you are going to bear, your offspring, are going to carry that evil. That's what it says here. Diseased, feeble, weak infants are brought into the world to share this misery, transmitted to them from their parents. This is Spiritual Gifts, volume, that is volume what? Volume 4, page 133 to 140. That is where we are reading from, so you can read that. Okay. Spiritual Gifts, volume 4, page 133 to 140. This is the second Ellen G. White statement on drugs, was published in 1865 in How to Live number 3 in an article entitled Disease and Its Causes. Yes.
You see, this is the very, very interesting that God is speaking to us in this manner. If you remember, the SGA church, even before the big pharma was able to make these millions that is making, God had detected the evils of these drugs. And so he was training his church, the Seventh-day Adventists, to get back to natural remedies. And so he instructed us to construct sanitariums. Now, look at those sanitariums that we began and the hospitals that we have developed into now. None of them is using the natural medicine. So our hospitals have more like transformed into that which God says it shouldn't be. And look at how many innocent people are going to so-called Adventist hospitals and clinics with the hope to say these are going to offer something better. When in actual sense, we are getting the same drugs and giving it to the people. It is sad that even in some of these pandemics that happen, it is those who are well educated and informed in these things, who have had the Seventh-day Adventist background, that are in the forefront of administering death traps into the bodies of human beings, even to the extent of affecting the DNA of a person or changing it altogether. Imagine. So we see that when God says that when you have light and you don't use it, how great that light will become into what? Darkness. And when you are in darkness, you think that now you are doing the best. No wonder you see that angel of the Laodicean, or to the Laodicean, is not only blind spiritually, but we see that he has also the physical blindness because he has rejected even the counsel of God on his own spiritual life. Because we see that once you have a diseased body, inspiration tells us that the sick cannot be able to comprehend the truth of God. Because you have first to heal the sickness, then you are giving them the opportunity now to hear the word of God. Now, imagine where you have a situation whereby us, instead of being well, we are being induced to get sick by those institutions that we call Seventh-day Adventist institutions, leading us into departing from God. Now, this explains, beloved, the problem that we have been facing. Look at how plain the truths of God are and how it is difficult for people to comprehend. So we are saying that the problem is not necessarily that people cannot hear. The constituents of the organs of these people are making things very difficult for the truth to enter. Because as this person has told us, such people that subsist on these strong drugs, they make themselves a very difficult people to work, because the Spirit of God doesn't work in such an environment. So now it is helping us now to fully appreciate and understand that it's not every person that we find well dressed thinking that he is an intellectual. We should know that in one way or the other, they may manifest a deranged kind of internal arrangements opposed to God's way of dealing with human beings. So no wonder now I understand God saying that the servants of God who have a clearer view of how sinful sin is, such that they will be portrayed as being in agony, even sighing and crying. Because we have seen that now, if mercury is in our body, we have to say even a particle of it, it is still able to do what? To bring its baleful effect or harmful effects upon us. Now, imagine who can separate us from that. So it is the wisdom that God is giving us and also his power to help us eliminate them. I think we are learning quite a lot in this that the Lord is giving us. Thank you, Brother Keagan.
Now, Sister Olivia. Okay. The use of powerful poisons. The human family have brought upon themselves disease of various forms by their own wrong habits. They have not studied how to live healthfully, and their transgression of the laws of their being has produced a deplorable state of things. The people have seldom or rarely accredited their sufferings to the true cause, their own wrong course of action. They have indulged in temperance, in eating, and made a god of their appetite. In all their habits, they have manifested a recklessness in regard to health and life, and when as the result, sickness has come upon them, they have made themselves believe that God was the author of it. And when their own wrong course of action has brought the sure result, when in distress, they send for the doctor and they trust their bodies in his hands, expecting that he will make them well. He deals out to them drug, of the nature of which they know nothing. They don't know the consequence. And in their blind confidence, they swallow anything that the doctor may choose to give. Thus, powerful poisons are often administered, which fetter nature in all her friendly efforts, and to recover from the abuse the system has suffered. And the patient is hurried out of this life. The mother who has been slightly indisposed, who might have recovered by abstaining from food for a short period and ceasing from labor, having quiet and rest, has, instead of doing this, sent for a physician, or doing this, sent for a physician, and he who should be prepared to give a few simple directions and restrictions in that and place her upon the right track is either too ignorant to do this or too anxious to obtain a fee. Some drugs to death, that is a subtitle. He makes the case appear a grave one, and administers his poisons, which if he himself were sick, he would not venture to take. The patient grows worse, and the poisonous drugs are more freely administered, until nature is overpowered in her efforts and gives up the conflict and the mother dies. She was dragged to death. Her system was poisoned beyond remedy. She was murdered. Now, neighbors and relatives marvel at the wonderful dealings of providence in thus removing a mother in the midst of her usefulness at the period when her children need her care so much.
You see, this point has touched me because this morning as we were preparing to come to church, a neighbor called my wife, just about 3 houses from ours, that shared a problem with her leg. So they went to operate on her. So she was given those drugs that they make you like sleep so that they operate on you. So now the report is saying that, imagine the problem was the leg. So they had to give her those drugs, yes, analgesics, and then she more like passed out so that they conduct the operation. So when they were done with the operation, they are saying that she woke up, and a few minutes later, the condition changed, and she has died. Now, when I'm listening now to this that we are reading, it is exactly what has happened also. The daughter, having heard the news, she also collapsed. She was not sure to say, how is it my mother, who was just complaining of a leg, a mere leg, then she's no more. So you can't relate, like you are saying that the neighbors and relatives marvel at the wonderful dealings of providence. What has happened? Imagine someone has just been removed out of usefulness in a moment. This lesson is powerful, Brother Keagan. So now we are seeing that those drugs, actually, they are the ones that have taken, not the disease she had, because she was working, okay, and she was working with it. But because she had some pain in it, she thought that the best was to have it operated on. But here we are now. This is basically what Sister White now is giving us as a wise counsel to say. We need to help our families. Yeah, thank you so much.
Since at a period when her children need her care so much, she passes away, you've seen. So they wrong our good and wise Heavenly Father when they cast back upon him this weight of human woe. That's what they do. You know, they begin to blame it on providence. They begin to say it's good. Others they say when you cannot avert death. Heaven wished that mother to live. Her untimely death dishonored God. The mother's wrong habits and her inattention to the law of her being made sick, and the doctor's fashionable poisons introduced into the system closed the period of her existence and left a helpless, stricken motherless flock. Okay, that's what happened. This is not always the result which follows the doctor's drugging. Sick people who take these drug poisons do appear to get well. With some, there is sufficient life force for nature in some to draw upon to so far expel the poison from the system, but the sick having a period of rest, recover. But no credit should be allowed the doctors, no credit should be allowed the drugs taken for they only hindered nature in her efforts. So we should not give credit to the drugs, okay? Because sometimes nature will try to expel the drug, okay? And others would what? Would recover. Yes, the disease.
And so okay. The drug will hinder.
Because the drug is there to is to hinder. So some of what a certain person narrated this saying, I don't know, I'll say it when it progresses. Because a drug, what it does, another person presented it in this is a Gary Tansky. Gary Tansky has a presentation called molecular terrorism. It's like a terrorist in the human system. Like the drug system is a terrorism. These are terrorists, okay? And they cannot come to admit what they are doing. We can talk of terrorism like the secret terrorists, but we also have secret terrorists in what? Here, in the big farm. A lot of people, they trust these secret terrorists. They cannot, actually the court says that herbal medicines are considered quack, but them, they are trusted by everyone because it's high tech. Okay. If you're backward, you would go and take herbs. But if you yeah, intelligent, you take drugs. Okay.
And that on that one, do you see how they are even doing it? To close off the use of natural remedies, they would tell you that we are not sure if it works because it hasn't been scientifically proven. Just to prove your point, to say they are attaching the wisdom of learning to what they have produced as opposed to that which can heal naturally. To say the fact that we haven't tested and tried it, it is not worthy. But you see that what now they are offering is actually the one that actually curtails or makes a short life work of the natural healing process. How sad.
To what? To reach also to those people who claim their land. You know, what you call science, there are a lot of books that have been produced, a lot of them. What you call science? Science, even in the dictionary, it says it involves observation, experimentation. Most of the herbs, for instance, if me, what they do in science, they get, if I get, for instance, garlic works for flu. We say it works for flu or coughs. Then I give a person, my friend who has cough, then it cures the cough. Okay, that is science in itself because one, I've observed that it has cured the cough. Okay, and here in Africa, indigenous here in Africa, though they're trying to modernize it by high-tech or drugs. We used to have our own indigenous medicine, which our what forefathers scientifically proven because they saw. Even us were evidence, ourselves were evidence because we grow up with those herbs. That is science. When you check the same science they talk about science, it's basically the same where you just you get the rats, you administer a certain dose, maybe you get 100 rats. Or then the rats, then you try to check, okay, if the rats they have this tumor, then they put the medicine, then they see how many rats are going to respond to this medicine. You observe, you begin to observe now. Okay. Okay. Versus if there a lot of rats respond, then maybe the 100, then 50 responds. Others they don't respond. Maybe they will now certify the medicine. They saying it will work, but they will give a percentage to that medicine. It's some, yeah, 50-50. But it says it works. So that is science. So if you are very much intelligent, you know that what do you call, what they term science is just because they've endorsed. But science is everywhere. As long as you see that it can work, that is science. As long as you see that when you take garlic, when you have the flu or cough, it goes. That is science. That is science. Okay. So that's how it is. Let me check. All the credit should be ascribed to nature's restorative powers, not to what? To the drug. Although the patient may recover, yet the powerful effort nature was required to make to induce action to overcome the poison injured the constitution. see now, and shortened the life of what? Of the patient. So we see that in the effort that nature tries to get rid of that, then though nature sometimes would try to overpower the disease, but nature will be crippled, okay, or it will be injured, and it will shorten what? Your lifespan, okay. And there are many who do not die under the influence of drugs, but there are very many who are left useless wrecks, hopeless, gloomy, miserable sufferers, a burden to themselves and to society. There are many. Yes. Drugs deteriorate the race. If those who take these drugs were alone the sufferers, then the evil would not be so great. Parents not only sin against themselves in swallowing drug poisons, but they sin against their children. The vitiated state of their blood, the poison distributed throughout the system, the broken constitution, and the various drug diseases as the result of drug poisons are transmitted to their offspring and left to them as a wretched inheritance. This is another great cause of the degeneracy of the race. So now she had a vivid presentation of the effects of drugs. She had a vivid presentation. Okay, so this is a vivid presentation. Physicians, by administering their drug poisons, have done very much to increase the deterioration of the race, physically, mentally, and morally. Okay, physically, mentally, and morally.
I think this comes back to, do you remember when we were talking about the vaccination for the children?
Yes.
Yeah, that is basically answering in this process through which they affect us as the human race, physically, mentally, and morally. Because moral, we fail to comprehend even the 10 Commandments, my brother. Why? Because our bodies have been worked on to be opposed. Okay, by Adam's partaking of the forbidden fruit, our nature was deranged. We were detached from the things of God. But what we have done now, instead of just concentrating on turning back to God so that we return to where we once were with Him, what are we doing now? We are allowing man to create more and more things that now will make us more weak, more susceptible to disease and sickness, even death. And the statement which is saying that most of those of us that have taken these drugs, we are not dead. We don't die from drugs, but we have become what? Invalids. So you see that all that is like they are prolonging a life. And by the way, I was even wondering at one point, say, what is it that they use to gauge to say, oh no, the average lifespan of man now is 85, is 7. If you live well, 70, or at most 80, just like that. They even know that for those who can reach those years, unless they stop these things that they themselves are manufacturing and live on the principles of God, then can they prolong their lives. Have you seen? So it is showing us that they have a program and they know our lifespan because they know what they have been giving us. And what is saddening and most disheartening about us SDA is these things were written for us before this thing grew to the extent to which it has grown. And we are kept in ignorance, and yet we feel like when Jesus comes, he's going to take us home. When in actual sense, we are not, it's like we have not been growing to become better people in the sight of God, but we are what? Further and further departing from him. Yet in numbers, we have seen the church prospering. This is indeed criminal to say. It is treasonous what we have been doing as Seventh-day Adventists. And the worst part is, even the Davidian groupings have continued in the same path. So let us make to the end that the opposite of this dragging system is done by us. God is waiting upon us now to have institutions, sanitariums that will be of benefit not only to ourselves, but at least to those closest to us in whatever locality we are, so that we may begin the path of restoration that God has always desired that these truths should be able to do in us. What we have been doing, indeed, we are boasting that we are the best church, we are the remnant, but remnant in doing what? Sitting around. Anyway.
Yeah. So that is clear. Okay. So everywhere it says a vivid presentation of the effects of drugs. Physicians, by administering their drug poisons, have done very much to increase the deterioration of the race physically and mentally and morally. Everywhere you may go, you will see deformity everywhere, disease and imbecility, imbecility, which in very many cases can be traced directly back to the drug poisons administered by the hand of a doctor as a remedy for some of life's illness or ills. The so-called remedy has fearfully proved itself to the patient by state suffering experience to be far worse than the disease for which the drug was taken. All who possess common capabilities should understand the ones of their own system. The philosophy of health should compose one of the important studies for our children. Philosophy of health should compose one of the important studies for our children. It is more important than the human organism be understood. It is all important that, it is all important that the human organism should be understood. Okay. Then intelligent men and women can be their own physicians. If the people would reason from cause to effect and would follow the light which shines upon them, they would pursue a course which would do ensure health, and the mortality would be far less. Mortality would be far less. But the people are too willing to remain in excusable ignorance and trust their bodies to the doctors. That's what they do. Instead of having any special responsibilities themselves, they trust themselves to the doctors. 4 illustrative cases Ellen White she gives several illustrations of this great subject have been presented before me. The first was a family consisting of a father and a daughter. The daughter was sick, and the father was much troubled on her account and summoned a physician. As the father conducted him into the sick room, he manifested a painful what? A painful anxiety. The physician examined the patient and said, but little. They both left the sick room. The father informed the physician that he had buried the mother, a son, and a daughter, and that this daughter was all that was left to him of his family. He anxiously inquired of the physician if he, inquired of a physician. He anxiously inquired of the physician if he thought his daughter's case hopeless. The physician then inquired in regard to the nature and length of the sickness of those who had died. The father mournfully related the painful facts connected with the illness of his loved ones. My son was first attacked with a fever. I called a physician. He said that could administer. Where was I? Okay, he said that he could administer medicine which would soon break the fever. He gave him powerful medicine, but was disappointed in its effects. The fever was reduced, but my son grew dangerously sick. The same medicine was again given him, without producing any change for the better. The physician then resorted to still more powerful medicines, but my son obtained no relief. The fever left him, but he did not rally. He sank rapidly and died. The death of my son, so sudden and unexpected, was a great grief to us all, especially to his mother. Her watching and anxiety in his sickness and her grief occasioned by his sudden death were too much for her nervous system, and she was so prostrated. Sorry, she was soon prostrated. I felt dissatisfied with the course pursued by this physician. My confidence in his skill was sunken. Sorry, was shaken. I could not employ him a second time. I called another to my suffering wife. The one was soon prostrated. I called another to my second wife. I mean, another to my wife, my suffering wife. Not second wife, my suffering wife. Okay. This second physician gave her a liberal dose of opium, which he said would relieve her pain, quiet her nerves, and give her rest, which she much needed. The opium stupefied her. She slept, and nothing could arouse her from the death-like stupor. Her pulse and heart at times throbbed violently, and then grew more and more feeble in their action until she ceased to breathe. Thus she died, without giving her family one look of recognition. This second death was seemed more than we could endure. We also sorrowed deeply, but I was agonized and could not be comforted. My daughter was next afflicted. Grief, anxiety, and watching had overtasked her powers of endurance, and her strength gave way, and she was brought upon a bed of suffering. I had now lost confidence in both of the physicians I had employed. Okay. And another physician was recommended me as being successful in treating the sick. And although he lived at a distance, I was determined to obtain his service. This third physician professed to understand my daughter's case. He said that she was greatly debilitated, that her nervous system was deranged, and that a fever was upon her, which could be controlled, but that it would take time to bring her up from her present state of debility. He expressed perfect confidence in his ability to raise her. He gave her powerful medicine to break up the fever. This was accomplished, but as the fever left, the case assumed more alarming features and grew more complicated. As the symptoms changed, the medicines were varied to meet the case. While under the influence of new medicines, she would, for a time, appear revived. This would flatter our hopes that she would get well, only to make our disappointment more bitter as she became worse. The physician's last resort was calamity. For some time, she seemed to be between life and death. She was thrown into convulsions. Okay, that is seizures, convulsions. As these most distressing spasms ceased, we were aroused to the painful fact that her intellect was weakened. She became slowly to improve, although still she began slowly to improve, although still a great sufferer. Her limbs were crippled as the effect of the powerful poisons which she had taken. She lingered a few years, a helpless, pitiful sufferer, and died in much agony. After this sad relation, the father looked imploringly to the physician and entreated him to save his only remaining child. The physician looked sad and anxious, but made no prescription. He arose to leave, saying that he would call the next day. 3 cases treated with drugs. Another scene was then presented before me. I was brought into the presence of a female, apparently about 30 years of age. A physician was standing by her and reporting that her nervous system has deranged. So her nervous system has deranged. I don't know if this is correct now. That her blood was impure and moving sluggishly, and that her stomach was in cold, in active condition. He said he would give her active remedies which would soon improve her condition. He gave her a powder from a vow upon which was written Nux vomica, that is opium. I watched to see what effect this would have upon the patient. It appeared to act favorably. Her condition seemed better. She was animated and even seemed cheerful and active. My attention was then called to still another case. I was introduced into the sick room of a young man who was in a high fever. A physician was standing by the bedside of the sufferer with a portion of medicine taken from a vial upon which was written calomel. He administered this chemical poison, and a change seemed to take place, but not for the better. I was then shown still another case. It was that of a female who seemed to be suffering much pain. A physician stood by the bedside of the patient and was administering medicine taken from a vial upon which was written opium. At first, this drug seemed to affect the mind. She talked strangely, but finally became quiet and slept. Back to the anxious father. My attention was then called to the first case, that of the father who had lost his wife and 2 children. The physician was in the sick room, standing by the bedside of the afflicted daughter. Again, he left the room without giving medicine. The father, when alone in the presence of the physician, seemed deeply moved and inquired impatiently, "Do you intend to do nothing? Will you leave my only daughter to die?" Okay, the physician said, "I have listened to the sad history of the death of your much loved wife and your 2 children, and have learned from your own lips that all 3 died while in the care of physicians, and while taking medicines prescribed and administered by their hands. Medicine has not saved your loved ones, and as a physician, I solemnly believe that none of them need or ought to have died. They could have recovered if they had not been so drugged that nature was enfeebled by abuse and finally crushed." He stated decidedly to the agitated father, "I cannot give medicine to your daughter. I shall only seek to assist nature in her efforts by removing every obstruction, and then to leave nature to recover the exhausted energies of the system." He placed in the father's hand a few directions which he enjoined him to follow closely. Keep the patient free from excitement and every influence calculated to depress. Her attendants should be cheerful and hopeful. This is the one which is written in Ministry of Healing. Her attendants should be cheerful and hopeful. She should have a simple diet. She should be allowed plenty of pure soft water to drink. She should bathe frequently in pure soft water, and this treatment should be followed by gentle rubbing. Let light and air be freely admitted into her room. She must have quiet and undisturbed rest. The father slowly read the prescription and wondered at the few simple directions it contained, and seemed doubtful that any good would result from such simple means. Said the physician, "You have had sufficient confidence in my skill to place the life of your daughter in my hands. Withdraw not your confidence. I will visit your daughter daily and direct you in the management of her case. Follow my directions with confidence, and I trust in a few weeks to present her to you in much better condition of health, if not fully restored." The father looked sad and doubtful, but submitted to the decision of the physician. He feared that his daughter must die, okay, if she had no medicine. Program of the other cases. See now what? Okay, the program of other cases. The second case was again presented before me. The patient had appeared better under the influence of Nux vomica, you know it, the one which it's the same as opium. She was sitting up, folding a shawl closely around her, and complaining of chilliness. The air in the room was impure. It was heated and had lost its vitality. Almost every crevice where pure air could enter was guarded to protect the patient from a sense of painful chilliness, which was especially felt into the back of the neck and down the spinal column. You know, it affects the head and the spine. Okay, seemed nervous and distressed, okay, because of the air. And in treatment, connection is unstable. Are you still able to get me? Okay. I think so, maybe. You're still able to get me, huh? Okay. She seemed nervous and distressed and entreated that it should be closed, for she was cold. She could not bear the least draft of air from the door or windows. Okay. A gentleman of intelligence stood looking pityingly upon her and said to those present, "This is the second result of Nux vomica. It is especially felt upon the nerves, and it affects the whole nervous system. There will be for a time increased force action upon the nerves, but as the strength of this drug is spent, there will be chilliness and prostration. Just the degree that it excites and enlivens will be the deadening, benumbing results following. The third case was again presented before me. It was that of the young man to whom was administered calomel. He was a great sufferer. His lips were dark and swollen. His gums were inflamed. His tongue was thick and swollen, and the saliva was running from his mouth in large quantities. The intelligent gentleman before mentioned looked sadly upon the sufferer and said, "This is the influence of mercurial preparations or mercurial preparations." This young man had sufficient nervous energy remaining to begin a warfare upon this intruder. This drug poison to attempt to expel it from the system. Many have not sufficient life force left to arouse to action, and nature is overpowered, seizes her efforts, and the victim what? Dies. Okay, the fourth case. The person to whom was given opium was again presented before me. She had awakened from her sleep, much prostrated. Her mind was distracted. She was impatient and irritable, finding fault with her best friends and imagining that they did not try to relieve her sufferings. She became frantic and raved like a maniac person. Okay, the gentleman before me mentioned looked sadly the sufferer and said to those physicians was caught. He gave her an increased dose of opium, which quieted her ravings, yet made her very talkative and cheerful. She was at peace with all around her and expressed much affection for acquaintances or friends as well as for her relatives. She soon grew drowsy and fell into a stupefied condition. The gentleman mentioned above solemnly said her condition is no better now than when she was in her frantic ravings. She is decidedly worse. This drug poison, opium, gives temporary relief from pain but does not remove the cause of pain. It only stupefies the brain, rendering it incapable of receiving impressions from the nerves, while the brain is thus insensible. The hearing, the taste, and the sight are affected. When the influence of opium wears off and the brain arouses from its state of paralysis, the nerves which had been cut off from communication with the brain shriek out louder than ever. The pain in the system because of the additional outrage the system has sustained in receiving this poison. Every additional drug given to the patient, whether it be opium or some other poison, will complicate the case. Every additional drug given to the patient, whether it be opium or some other poison, will complicate the case and make the patient's recovery more hopeless. The drugs given to stupefy, whatever they may be, derange the nervous system, and evil, simple in the beginning, which nature aroused herself to overcome, and which she would have overcome had she been left to herself, has been made tenfold worse by the introduction of drug poisons into the system. The result of these, where am I? The result of these poisons is a destructive disease of itself, forcing into extraordinary action the remaining life forces to war against and overcome the drug intruder. Gratifying, okay, this is another subtitle. Gratifying results in the first case. The same. Okay, gratifying results in the first case. I was brought into the sick room of the first case, that of, remember, the mother and the two children that died. Okay. I was brought into the sick room of the first case, that of the father and his daughter. The daughter was sitting by the side of her father, cheerful and happy, with the glow of health upon her countenance. The father was looking upon her with happy satisfaction. Okay, his countenance speaking the gratitude of his heart, that his only child was spared to him. Her physician entered, and after conversing with the father and child for a short time, arose to leave. He addressed the father thus: I present to you your daughter restored to health. I gave her no medicine, that I might leave her with an unbroken constitution. Medicine never could have accomplished this. Medicine deranges. Actually, you have to understand the reason why they write medicine. They are referring to drugs. This is not medicine. It's drug. So drugs deranges. Because then they are taught saying that medicine, drug is what? Medicine. But drug does not medicate. It doesn't cure. They are not therapeutic. Okay. So medicine deranges nature's fine machinery and breaks down the constitution and kills, but it never cures. This is the leap of what? from what physician. Okay. Yes, it's correct. Nature alone possesses restorative powers. She alone can build up her exhausted energies and repair the injuries she has received by inattention to her fixed laws. He then asked the father if he was satisfied with his manner of treatment. The happy father expressed his heartfelt gratitude and perfect satisfaction, saying, I have learned a lesson I shall never forget. Okay. It was painful, yet it is of priceless value. I am now convinced that my wife and children need not have died. Their lives were sacrificed while in the hands of physicians by their poisonous drugs. Results of drugging. I was then shown the second case. The patient to whom Nux vomica had been administered. She was being supported by two attendants from her chair to her bed. She had nearly lost the use of her limbs. The spinal nerves were partially paralyzed, and the limbs had, the limbs, okay, the limbs had lost their power to bear her weight, okay, the legs and the hands, okay. She coughed distressingly, and breathed with difficulty. She was laid upon the bed and soon lost her hearing and sight. Okay, and after lingering thus a while, she died. The gentleman before mentioned looked sorrowfully upon the lifeless body and said to those present, witness the, so this gentleman, we assume is the angel, okay, said to those present, witness the protracted influence of Nux vomica upon the human system. At its introduction, the nervous energy was excited to extraordinary action to meet this drug poison. This extra excitement was followed by prostration, and the final result has been paralysis of the nerves. This also happened to one of, a certain woman. She was okay, but what she was complaining of, she was complaining, saying, I feel numbness, but she was just okay. So she came to Lusaka to do diagnosis. Then they said, okay, maybe it's they checked in the lungs, says, okay, maybe this is what do you call it, TB. Then she went to another one, the government clinic, they said, no, this is pneumonia. Pneumonia. So then they said, okay, we'll give you medicine, but there's no medicine as far as health is concerned in the allopathic medicine. There's no medicine for pneumonia. They give TB medicine for pneumonia. Okay, because I confirmed also with another one, a second client I met, also she was told saying she had pneumonia, but she was cautioned by the friend in the hospital saying you should not. Actually, it was a physician, just cautioned saying you should not accept. This is pneumonia. If you accept it, TB medication, you're going to die. So what she did is that she did not resort to take TB medication. She did what do you call? She just taking garlic and thyme. Okay, because thyme, what do you call, removes water from the lungs. So that's what she was taking, and that's what cured her. Then the one that I'm talking about, her, because those people, the disadvantage of having influence, and those people, they think as if they are learned. So, and maybe they have money, they think they have money, so taking her to expensive hospital. Then those physicians are giving her, they first gave her TB medications. The TB medication, what happened? These signs, the ones I'm reading here, is what happened. After that, first she was excited and she became paralyzed. Like she has a stroke, she's not moving. The person who was moving started now not moving, like a stroke. So them they took, instead of reading the side effects, maybe this what they could have given her, it constitutes this. Then they started saying, okay, it's a stroke. So they started giving her medication for what? And BP what medication. Okay. Then before that, then the TB. So TB medications for stroke. After that, what happened? They discovered that she was becoming worse and worse. Became worse and worse. Then eventually she passed away. That's the case. Okay. A person who was just okay, very okay. Then because she said, okay, I feel numbness. Let me have the doctors check on me. What happened? She ended up dying. Okay, there are a lot of cases, okay, presented, a lot of them. So here also, Ellen White, she confirms this. She confirms. So it says, this person who was seeing the angel, who assumed this is the angel, says that this drug does not have the same effects upon all. Some who have powerful constitutions recover from abuses which they may subject the system, while others whose hold on life is not so strong, who possess enfeebled constitutions, never recover from receiving into the system, and even one dose may die from no other cause than the effects of one portion of this poison. Its effects are always tending to death. The condition the system is in at the time those poisons are received into it determines the life of the patient. Nux vomica can cripple. You know, to cripple, a person who is lame is different from a person who is crippled. Crippled, it means they have amputated. You don't have maybe legs or what? That is crippled. They can't function. Nux vomica can cripple, paralyze, destroy health what? Forever. That's what it's saying. It can, Nux vomica can cripple, paralyze, destroy health forever, but it never cures. The third case, that of the young man to whom had been administered calamine, was again presented before me. He was a pitiful sufferer. His limbs were crippled, and he was greatly deformed. He said that his sufferings were beyond description, and life was to him a great burden. The gentleman whom I have repeatedly mentioned looked upon the sufferer with sadness and pity and said, this is the effect of calamity. It torments the system as long as there is a particle of the poison left in it. It ever lives, not losing its properties by its long stay in the living system. Okay, it inflames the joints and often sends rottenness into the bones. In others, they suffer bone conditions. They say, yes. It frequently manifests itself in the tumors, ulcers, and cancers, years after it has been introduced into what? Into the system. The fourth case, so the angel has recorded what calamine would do. Okay. So sometimes years after it has been introduced into the system, because it lingers there, then eventually it will produce what you call tumors, because the body will try saying, how are we going to get rid of this? Because it can't be gotten out. So they'll create a bin for it, a deposit, which will be a tumor, so that they deposit all these chemicals into this. So it will form tumors, it will form ulcers, it will form what we call cancers after it has been introduced into the system. The fourth case was again presented before me. The patient before me. The patient to whom opium had been administered. Her countenance was sallow, pale, and her eyes were restless and glassy. Her hands shook as if palsied. Okay, and she appeared greatly excited, imagining, sorry, what word? Sorry, imagining. This is not correct spelling. Huh? Imagining that all present were leagued against her. Her mind was a complete wreck, and she raved in a pitiful manner. The physician was summoned and seemed to be unmoved at these terrible exhibitions. He gave the patient a more powerful portion of opium, which he said would set her all right. Her ravings did not cease until she became thoroughly intoxicated. She then passed into a death-like stupor. The gentleman already mentioned looked upon the patient and said sadly, her days are numbered. The efforts that nature has made have been so many times overpowered by this poison that the vital forces are exhausted by being repeatedly induced to unnatural action to rid the system of this poisonous drug. Nature's efforts are about to cease, and then the patient's suffering life will end. More deaths have been caused by drug taking than from all other causes combined. Okay, how to live, number 3, page 51 to 61. Okay, this was reprinted in the Review and Herald, August 15, September 12, 1899. Okay, note then follows the section on drugs from spiritual gifts, volume 4, appearing as the chapter 1. Okay, that's where I was from reading. So you have to read these. Okay, let me repeat. How to live, number 3, page 51 to 61. Reprinted in Review and Herald, August 15, September 12, 1899. Note, then follows the section on drugs from spiritual gifts, volume 4, appearing as chapter 1. Okay. So the other parts, let me just read on these ones. What are drugs? You've ascertained that. Let me just read. Just want to show you the other part. Okay, drugs as employed in medical practice. Let me leave this. I want just to check the one that people try to contradictory, what do you call, cases pertaining to drugs. That's the part that I want to discuss. The usual cause in the free use of poisonous drugs. So you will do well to read this article so that you receive a rich blessing. Have you seen it? When you go down there, it has to be Okay, it's this one. It's called balancing statements. Go down. Okay, now balancing statements. So I'm remaining 15 minutes. So I want to look at the balancing statement because so far you've seen, and if you do your little effort to read all the articles that will be sent to you, you read uh, for yourself, because the Bible says, study to show thyself approved unto God. Okay, thyself approved unto God. You want to be approved unto God, a workman that need not to be ashamed, writing. Okay, dividing the word of truth. Okay. Okay. So balancing statements which may help us find our way. Okay, which of course we check also balancing statements in the entering wedge. Okay, and many that would find out or would learn. So less dangerous if wisely administered. Do not administer drugs. Do not administer drugs. True, drugs may not be as dangerous wisely administered as they usually are, but in the hands of many will be hateful to the Lord's property. Let me repeat. Less dangerous if wisely what? Okay. Do not administer drugs. True, drugs may not be as dangerous wisely administered as they usually are, but in the hands of many will be hateful to the Lord's property.
Speaking of our current situation, when you go to the clinics or hospitals, the so-called physicians, many of them, maybe you call just them to say they are clinical officers, they don't examine the patient. They'll just ask the patient, how are you feeling? And then they start prescribing. They don't even take time to give or understand how the person lives or what happened, what he was doing for him when he got, so that they get the background information. Like you see what helped the first physician. It is because of the history that the father gave. It gave him a picture that this one does not need medication. But sadly today, that's why he is saying that when these medicines that we are calling drugs are used wisely, they are not that harmful. They help. But the only problem is how they are usually now done is that somebody just prescribed. And I've seen people who are prescribed medicine, they go to a pharmacy. Then the pharmacist, out of mercy, says, who prescribed this drug for you? Then the innocent person says, the doctor said, no, this is too strong. You hear that, right? So you find that the pharmacist somehow saves that patient. Say, no. Go back to the one who told you. Then when the person went back, then the same physician says, so sorry, I don't know what I was thinking when I wrote this, I prescribed this drug. They prescribe again a stronger one again. He goes back, the same physician, the same pharmacist says, what is happening with this doctor? When I look at you, this is what is being prescribed. You are not in a condition to take such strong medication. You see? So these are things that now we are understanding that when we read like you are saying, balancing up the statements, somebody will just go to the entering point and say, time for drugs and time for not for drugs. You understand? Then somebody say, okay, I think maybe I've stayed 10 years. I think now it's time for drugs. That's what you can conclude. That is all wrong. What kind of drugs would you need at that particular time? You see, that is the catchword there. To say, if there is any time for drugs, why? If like I like the examples you gave us the previous time, to say, if you want to deal with the surgery, you need drugs that will be able to do what? To numb the area areas where you are supposed to operate. That is when you say, at least we need this kind of drug. Not where you can even be cured from natural remedies or allow your body to just take a lot of water and then you'll be okay. You say, now for me it's time for drugs. No, that's not the wisdom that we are taught to say. If wisely administered. So you should understand, so the catchword there is wisely administered and wise administration of medicine, like I've cited what is happening now in the clinic. And like you saw that the father to the daughter who was saved was annoyed when that doctor was not prescribing anything. So it is today. When people go to the hospital and they are not given anything, they complain. I remember I even shared that I went to the hospital and the doctors just I was in hospital for 2 weeks, and all the doctor said was just regulate the water intake versus your urine output. The more urine you produce, you just add, because your normal intake in 24 hours of water should be 400 mils, because your kidneys are taking a lot of water. So just a daily intake of 400. So if you produce 100 mils of urine, it means you take 500 mils of water to cover up for the loss. When you lose 200 mils, then it will be 600 mils, just like that. You just continue taking water like that. And when people came to visit me, they were asking, what medication have you been given? I said, no, I'm just taking water. Just water. And then suddenly they saw that the legs that had a lot of water, because I was given a lot of drips, started noticing the changes happening. Then that's when they started like that. The father explained, say, oh, the doctor was wonderful. Now for me, it took the whole doctors, imagine from the highest in charge, the in charge of the whole block, the block that I was in, to the list, even the students with those from different universities that were in, they all came and surrounded my bed when he was giving that announcement to say, for this one, no, don't even give a drip or anything. He was supposed to go for dialysis to cleanse the urea and everything else. But the way his body is responding, it is able to heal everything. And within 2 weeks, those things were done. Are you seeing? So you will see that if they had continued dragging me, I don't know what would have happened. So we thank God that at least these lessons are coming at a time that we can relate to how the Lord works. Thank you so much.
Okay. So another one says seldom needed. Okay, drugs seldom needed. They're rarely needed. Seldom needed. Use them less and less. Okay, use them less and less. This is Ellen White. Educate people in the laws of life so that they may know how to preserve health. The efforts actually put forth at present are not meeting the mind of God. Drug medication is a case to this enlightened age. Educate away from drugs. Use them less and less and depend more upon hygienic agencies. Then nature will respond to God's physicians. Pure air, pure water, proper exercise, a clear conscience. Okay, this will help you. Many might recover without 1 grain of medicine, just like he gave the testimony. Men might recover without 1 grain of medicine if they would live out the laws of health. Drugs need seldom or rarely be used. It will require earnest, patient, protracted effort to establish the work and to carry it forward upon hygienic principles. But let fervent prayer and faith be combined with your efforts, and you will succeed. By this work, you will be teaching the patients and others also how to care of them, how to take care of themselves when sick, without resorting to the use of drugs. This is Medical Ministry, page 259 to 260, and 260. Medical Ministry 259 and 260. Discarding almost entirely. The use of drugs in our institutions, to the extent to which they are used, is a libel upon the name of the hygienic institutions for the treatment of the sick. The use of drugs in our institutions, to the extent to which they are used, is a libel upon the name of hygienic institutions for the treatment of the sick. So they are using the drugs. Okay. Brethren who stand in responsible positions, our institutions are established that the sick may be treated by hygienic methods, discarding almost entirely the use of drugs. There is a terrible account to be rendered to God by men who have so little regard for human life as to treat the body so ruthlessly in dealing out their drugs. We are not excusable if through ignorance we destroy God's building by taking into our stomachs poisonous drugs under a variety of names we do not understand. It is our duty to refuse all such prescriptions. We wish to build a sanitarium in Australia where maladies may be cured by nature's own provisions, and where the people may be taught how to treat themselves when sick, where they will learn to eat temperately of wholesome food and be educated to refuse all narcotics, tea, coffee, fermented wines, and stimulants of all kinds, and to discard the flesh of dead animals. Okay. Finally, cease to deal out drugs. When you understand physiology in its truest sense, your drug bills will be very much smaller. And finally, you will cease to deal out drugs at all. The physician who depends upon drug medication in his practice shows that he does not understand the delicate machinery of the human organism. He is introducing into the system a seed crop that will never lose its destroying properties throughout the lifetime. I tell you this because I dare not withhold it. Christ paid too much for man's redemption to have his body so ruthlessly treated as it has been by drug medication. Years ago, the Lord revealed to me that institutions should be established for treating the sick without drugs. Man is God's property, and the ruin that has been made of the living habitation, the suffering caused by the seeds of death sown in the human system, are an offense to God. Medical Ministry 229, that is letter 773, 1896. Medical Ministry 229, letter 773, 1896. The method heaven approves. Okay, so this one you know already. So I wanted just to read for you the balancing statements, which would lead us to go and read the 2 minutes. That one will lead us to go to the road, but we'll look at it later. That is the next time we meet. Let me just, I don't know if this is 2 minutes. Let me check. There's a part which I want you to see, because there are a lot of people that have come to me asking me about blood transfusion. She has this in discussion. She tells me saying blood transfusion has saved many lives. We should not get rid of it. We have to continue use of blood transfusion. This is the quote that I was trying to look for. Okay. Because of this, others will be excited. No, even others would also refuse blood transfusion when they're very sick. Oh yeah. Okay. So maybe we can look at it later, so that we begin from there. Yes. Okay. Begin from the road, or no, we'll begin from there so that because the road can lead us into other discussions. Okay. So we'll check it up.
Okay, thank you so very much. That is the wonderful presentation given to us by Brother Keagan Banda. At this time, we are going to ask for comments or contributions before we close in prayer. If there are quick comments or contributions. Do we have quick comments or contributions? Brother Bernard Buana, anything on your end? Sister Leandro? I see Sister Meret Mchia has dropped off and others. Oh, yes, Brother Bernard.
Nothing much, but
Oh.
just a verse to add
If you can speak up.
the presentation. Nothing much, but how am I now? I'm audible?
Very.
Okay, just a verse to add on. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 17. Yes, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 17. It says, "Be not overmuch wicked, neither be thou foolish. Why shouldest thou die before thy time?" So the verse is encouraging us not to be foolish in what we take into, what we do. And in this case, what we take into our bodies, because the examples that have been given are showing us that it's possible for somebody to have an untimely death because of what taken into their bodies, drugs being taken at.
Oh, thank you so very much, Brother Bernard, for that. Sister Leandro, anything from your end? Yes, you can go ahead. Oh, I see you are unmuted, but it's like you can't get what you are saying. Oh, you have, okay, you have muted. All right. Oh, it's like we have lost you, Brother Bernard. Okay. Okay. All right. So, yeah, Sister Olivia, anything? Okay. Okay. So this is where we come to the end of our morning session. Let us kneel as we close in prayer. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, we are so grateful that you can speak to us in this manner, especially that these things that we are studying, you gave us a long time ago as a church that we may make use of and be wise unto salvation. Anyhow, we are so grateful that you have brought them this day and in this hour, that we may be reminded of how best we can be able to treat our bodies and never to die before our time. We have seen, dear Father, many things that cause us even to forget and never even to appreciate the truths, such that we have lost even the communication with heavenly angels, who you send as our ministering angels to tell us or to show us the way to walk. We have paid a blind eye to these. Just like in the lesson you have showed us that the guardian angel was able to explain the evils of Lux Monica, caramel, and indeed opium, and also many other drugs that are able to debilitate and derange the nervous system, that offer only an excitement for a while, but the bad effects that they leave upon the body are so grave. How we pray, dear Lord, that you may now, from this point on, show us how best we can be able to apply these wonderful remedies that are natural, that which you have recommended, and that which you have allowed man to use freely, for not only the well-being of the body, but also to have a body that is well ready to receive and keep even spiritual things. Thank you, Father, for speaking to us. At this time, we also pray that as we break for lunch, may you also bless the food that we are going to partake. That is going to be a food that will help us to grow physically, even as we look unto thee for spiritual strength and guidance. Protect us and bring us back together, even as we continue to learn your word in the afternoon. For this is our humble prayer with thanksgiving in our hearts in Jesus' holy name. Amen. Amen. All right, thank you so much. So we meet at 14:30 for the question and answer session on the 8th Made New. Bye-bye for now.